It's not too late for you to get your hands on the Geekdom 101 special Dragon Ball Daima merch. If you want a shirt, you can get it in multiple colors, whatever color you think looks the best on you. It's fully customizable and sized. And if you don't want a shirt, we also have other variety of clothing as well as hats, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, and even mouse pads. Get it today, don't wait. From the very beginning of Dragon Ball GT, they made a very controversial decision by turning Goku, our main character, back into a kid again. And it's a choice that a lot of Dragon Ball fans do not like, including even myself. I'm not a huge fan of it. But why? Why did Toei Animation choose to make Goku a kid again? And is there a deeper reason? On today's video, we're going to be discussing every single reason, both behind the scenes and narratively, as to why Goku became a kid again in GT. And by the end, you'll have an understanding of why that choice was made, even if you don't agree with it. Let's get to it right now. A few years ago, I did a video here on the channel called The Truth About Dragon Ball GT. You should go check it out if you haven't. It is over 1 million views, and it's a really a video I'm very proud of. And in that video, I briefly discussed one of the reasons as to why Goku was turned back into a kid in GT. And there were two big reasons when it comes to behind the scenes, I guess, ideas. One of which is that Dragon Ball is a shonen manga slash anime, and because of that, it's kind of a smart business move to always have a young character or a young boy character in, the driver's seat as far as main characters go. If you go back and think about it, when Goku became an adult, shortly after that, Gohan was introduced, so he became the new kid character. Then for the Buu Saga, Gohan grew up and we got introduced to Goten, and of course Trunks. Well, for GT, everybody's grown up at this point. Goten and Trunks are teenagers, so what they did was they turned Goku into a child. On top of that, and besides that, the other thing about GT is when they were first putting it together, they wanted it to have the same sort of exploration adventure feel that the original Dragon Ball series started with. So those are the two big sort of behind the scenes marketing reasons as to why Goku became a kid again. A lot of you guys probably did not know that, but that's why they did it, for better or for worse. However, there is a bit more to it than that. So I've got Jordan the Dragon Lee here, and let's talk about it, bro. So first of all, as a fan, how do you feel about Goku becoming a kid again? And then I'll give my opinion after you give yours, because I do have some nuance about this.
Like most fans, when I first started watching GT, I wasn't a huge fan of it. Like, I didn't really enjoy it that much because, honestly, I just felt like it was lacking in comparison to Z. Like, Z was just a wild ride for me from beginning to end, and I feel like GT started really slow, and there just wasn't a lot to capture my attention until later on in the series. So, him being a child, I guess, kind of left a bad taste in my mouth because of how GT was handled, because of the fact that it starts slow in combination with him also being a kid for the purpose of serving the purpose that child characters normally serve in terms of tropes. So that's how I felt about it. I was just like, yes, this is obviously a marketing move because it's a trope for shonen manga and different forms of entertainment to use a child main character because of the character traits of a child.
Well, yeah, because it's a shonen story, so they want to appeal to young boys as well as teenagers and adults, so you're going to have a kid there. It makes perfect sense as far as I know, but I didn't know that at first. When I first started watching and learning about GT in the late 90s, I didn't know that was the reason until many, many, many years later, right?
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a fan of Goku becoming a kid again. I'm really not, because it led to some kind of awkward storytelling. But here's sort of my opinion on that. If he was only a kid for the first arc, for the baby arc, and then he became an adult for the rest of GT, I would have been okay with it, because it was sort of a weird way to kind of regress Goku power-wise. I know some fans think that the reason why they even made him a kid was to weaken him because he had become so strong. That is not the case. That was never confirmed by anybody, whereas everything else we're talking about was confirmed by Kozo Morishita, the producer of GT. But personally, Had Goku only been a kid again for a little while and then become an adult again, and not just with SS4, I would have been fine with it. But then after the baby arc, going into Super 17 and the Shadow Dragons, he's still a kid. And by that point, it just kind of got annoying to me.
Yeah, well, I used to feel exactly like you, honestly. I used to feel pretty much exactly verbatim the way that you just expressed yourself. But, like, personally, when I first figured out that their intentions with Goku was to use him as the classical trope main child character is whenever they made that reference to Home Alone in Dragon Ball GT, because it sort of rubs it in your face that that's what they were trying to do with Goku, because that movie is popular due to the main child actor of the film. So that sort of gave away that was their intention, to use him for entertainment purposes in that way, because that's very appealing. It's a very appealing trope on an international level. Like, everybody enjoys watching those kind of stories, especially when we're younger. So I understood from the very beginning that that's what they were doing.
But I do think it backfired on them, because I've heard a lot of Dragon Ball fans say they don't like that. Now, you have something to say about Journey to the West, or the Buddhist sort of... Well, I'll let you get to it, because there is another reason.
Before we talk about GT, let's just talk about the Great Ape form and Goku and the role that they served in the original Dragon Ball. So Goku is a child with a Buddha-like nature, and they play on this a lot throughout Dragon Ball. Goku will randomly say Buddhist prayers. He's constantly taking Buddhist poses, practicing Buddhist martial arts. By practicing certain martial arts, you can accidentally practice the principles of Buddhism or Taoism, because martial arts itself was directly created and influenced by those philosophies. So the things that you're practicing, whenever you're practicing martial arts, you're actually practicing Buddhist and Taoist exercises. You just don't realize it. So that's part of the irony of Goku's character, is that he is accidentally and indirectly practicing these same things that Buddhist monks and Taoist monks practiced in the past. So Goku, as a martial artist and as a child, early in Dragon Ball, sort of represented this good half to his character, this sort of innocent, playful, very considerate and compassionate part of his nature that he developed as a result of being influenced by Grandpa Gohan. And then at night, whenever he saw the moon and he became a great ape, which, by the way, in Chinese mythology, they teach that the full moon actually empowers demons at night due to the fact that it's so thick with yin energy. So Toriyama is making direct reference to that whenever Goku transforms into a great ape under the full moon.
Right. And we've only seen Goku become a great ape as a kid. We've never seen him actually become one as an adult. So I always felt like that choice to even introduce a golden great ape was another throwback to, like, old Dragon Ball. I feel like they did that for, like, nostalgic purposes, and then they shifted that into Super Saiyan 4 because obviously Dragon Ball Z had introduced Super Saiyans. It was all marketing, yo. GT was like the predecessor to Super, where instead of it being Toriyama's, like, main story that everybody else just kind of threw their 2 cents in, it was more like a team effort, and sometimes that doesn't always work.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it definitely partially was marketing. That's undeniable. I mean, that's definitely factually. When it comes to, like, shonen products and, like, Japanese shows and stuff like that, they normally, you know, they strike this balance between marketability and cool narrative themes and playing on the source material that they have. Like, they try to strike a balance between those two things. So just because they're doing one thing doesn't mean they're not doing the other. But the Great Ape form has always been a representation of Sun Wukong's demon nature. Right? So the issue with Sun Wukong at the very beginning of Journey to the West is that he was very ape-like, and he was trying to conquer and rule his environment, and he was a very primitive, instinctual-driven creature who just wanted to rule and take over everything around him, and he was constantly killing and destroying everything around him. And so the Great Ape is sort of a representation of a purified version of this aspect to sort of represent the other half of Sun Wukong's personality at the end of Journey to the West, whenever he combines his nature as a demon with his nature as a Buddha to become the victorious fighting Buddha. So that's essentially what the entire point of Sun Wukong's character is he started off as like this very vicious, destructive demon, and he sort of keeps that part of his nature throughout the story, even to the very end. And instead of getting rid of it, he actually combines it with his nature as a Buddha to become a Buddha who is allowed to use violence. And that's what separates him from the actual Buddha is that his purpose is destruction and violence, and that's the reason that he is implemented to protect the monk in Journey to the West. So the scene that you're seeing when Goku goes Super Saiyan 4, that is literally what you are seeing. You are seeing a child with a Buddha nature embrace his inner nature as a destructive force of nature and combine it with his pure heart. So the concept of Goku becoming a Super Saiyan 4 is a direct reflection of the character development that Sun Wukong went through in Journey to the West. It's literally a representation of that duality of Sun Wukong's character, the fact that he was once a destructive demon who was trying to take over heaven and kill everyone and take over everything around him, to taking that part of himself and using it for productive purposes, protecting the monk Tripitaka on the Journey to the West, and eventually becoming the victorious fighting Buddha who, again, is allowed to use violence. So that's sort of the point. That's what they're playing on when Goku starts off as a child, who turns into a demonic ape-like figure, and then eventually in GT he combines those two parts of himself to create a more vicious character who's not necessarily like the great ape where they're just pure destruction and they're trying to kill everything around him. He's taking that part of himself and he's using it for something productive, and he's using it to protect Earth. So it's a direct reference to those events in Journey to the West, and I just think that makes GT a much more enjoyable product when you understand that is sort of what they're playing on here, is the duality of Goku's character and the duality of who he is as an individual.
Yeah, and that's why Super Saiyan 4 looks so different than the other forms. Dark hair, fur. It's supposed to represent that savage Saiyan nature. And I think that people understand that. I agree with you. I think most people who crap on GT, and I've noticed this in the internet Dragon Ball community, they either have never seen it before or they only saw the dub and probably saw it out of order. And the Dragon Ball GT dub is absolutely horrible. It could actually be worse than the Z dub as far as script changes go. Goku's script changes are ridiculous and annoying in GT, and it's just bad. But I think if people watched it in Japanese start to finish, they would probably appreciate it more. It's not perfect by any means. It's got a ton of flaws, and it's nowhere near as quality as Dragon Ball or Z. You could argue about Super, but it's nowhere near the quality of those previous two products. But I do think it's unfairly crapped on by people who have never even seen it before. It's kind of obnoxious that people shit on it just because everybody else shits on it. It's like you're joining the mob without even having your own opinion. What are you, a zombie? So I think that people, I hate people who do that shit, bro. It happens all the time. I hope that people do give GT a chance. So leave a comment down below and let us know what you think, and we'll talk to you in the next one.